So I thought it'd be great to connect and obviously sort of record the conversation. I thought rather than do it as a kind of a formal sort of interview, I thought it'd be just quite nice just to have a bit of a conversation and just kind of explore some ideas, record it, and then kind of put it out there, because there's a lot of people obviously are quite hungry now to kind of know what the next steps are. So as soon as I saw the title of your workshop, I thought, aha, this is something that's really going to resonate, because it's just what everybody's needing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah. So how, I mean, just generally, sort of how did the kind of phrase greening your business come about? Is that yours, or is that something you've kind of evolved over time?
No, it's definitely evolved. I'm trying to think how I can't remember what I called my first workshop, but it was, I started doing workshops, physical workshops last year, with another sustainability specialist here in Gloucestershire, Caroline Astrop of Green Spark Marketing. She's more of a specialist on the communication side. We did some workshops together last year, and we kind of knocked different names around, and greening your business came out as kind of the favourite of that. So, and those were quite well attended. So I just thought, well, let's continue using that name, since it seems to go down well. I tried a few other names last year, but that seems to be the one that resonated with people. So
I think it's just such a pertinent thing, isn't it, right now? I mean, it is what everybody's starting to talk about, and all this kind of uncertainty almost gives people something to kind of hook onto, doesn't it? I mean, it's something I think that's quite a tangible thing, although even though people might not actually understand quite what they have to do and also where they are. And that was something I was going to ask you about, actually. When you sort of engage with people, is it very much at the early kind of point in the journey, or have they already got some kind of recognition and maybe have already started to kind of make inroads in certain areas? Kind of what kind of level of maturity of greening would you say they've got?
Yeah, well, I've got different start points depending on where they are at the moment. So very often with workshops, they're either at a very early stage where they're thinking about it, or they've made some steps towards it. Although I've had some businesses that are really quite far down the line. So I've got varying. The idea behind the workshop is really to explore all the way across your business where the opportunities to get greener might be. And because of the way the questions are asked, that will help tease out what stage of the journey they are. So it's been fairly successful for businesses at all stages, really. They just get out of it whatever they can get out of it, depending on what stage they're at of the journey. So it's what I've got is I've developed a 6-dimensional model that just allows us to explore where all the opportunities might be within the business, and that allows them to come out of the workshop with a bit of with at least 6 ideas of these are the things we might explore and move on to next.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of one of the things that I'm sort of really interested in, is this whole idea of kind of, it's almost like the education piece comes sort of as part and parcel of the kind of the question and answers thing. Because I think for me, certainly when I've been sort of talking to organizations and actually kind of exploring my own journey, because I guess there's a personal thing as much as a professional thing for most people who would engage with something like this. I think for me, part of it is kind of being really sort of open and honest with your own sort of questioning as to kind of what you understand, because the whole topic is just so big, isn't it? And I think, for me, when I think about it and talk to people, I think as long as they're sort of quite open with the whole idea of it is a journey, there is no right or wrong, and it almost doesn't really matter where you're now. And if you can be like super honest about where you are, then you're answering questions from like a real world context, rather than, oh, well, I kind of, we do a bit of recycling, therefore, well, I must be a green organization, and almost kind of fooling yourself that you're in a different position. I think, for you, is honesty kind of like really part of this?
Oh, most certainly. That's one of the key parts. Honesty and transparency. In fact, it's it's kind of where I start with the workshop, which my ground rules, I call them. One of the top ones is honesty, because truth is, you're only kidding yourself. if you know, if you're not. So, but having said that, I do like to build. So if any organisation has made a start, however small, then let's celebrate that and say, okay, let's build on it. It gets me. I get quite annoyed with people who've gone a long way down this line, and then who then poo-poo and trash whatever small steps others people have made because they happen to be in an earlier part of the journey. So it's important to acknowledge those steps that have been made, and then, but then also to challenge and say, okay, where can we go next? And that's what the structure of the workshops hopefully designed to follow.
I mean, does this, do you think, apply more to organisations who've got like sort of tangible products? Because the people I'm talking to at the moment, there's almost like this camp of sort of service industry where they kind of struggle to see both their footprint and the impact and the opportunities, because they say, well, we're just a service organisation, so, you know, and we're all working from home right now, so therefore we don't have an impact, so therefore we're super green. And I think, well, hold on a minute, you know, it might not be, but it might be, but it might not be. And obviously then you've got like a manufacturing company or somebody who's in a supply chain, and they might be a sort of logistics company, and there is this kind of tangible thing that they do, which obviously then becomes inherently measurable because it's all about process. Kind of where, I mean, if you're sort of on the service side of things, I mean, where do you start? Because a lot of it is intangible, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. So there's no doubt if you're a product-based business, there's probably more to go at because there's those tangible things. But I've got some service companies who I work with. And firstly, there are tangible things they do that create a climate impact, especially. So at the moment, none of us are driving around. We're doing a lot of Zooming. But typically, service industry people do a lot of driving. And certainly, that's where my biggest impact is when I've looked at my carbon footprint. And I think that's probably true for most service businesses. But also we forget that our digital life has a footprint too. And it's very easy to forget that actually Zoom calls and IT actually use energy. And if you're using energy, you're creating a carbon footprint. So when I'm doing a carbon footprint calculation for a business, I try to include an estimate for what they're doing on the IT side and the cloud side too, so that we get a full picture. But for me, actually, the big contribution that the service businesses can make, and this is also true of product businesses, what I'm really keen on is to shift away from kind of the traditional net zero approach, where we're trying to move all our impacts down to zero, and take more of a net positive approach. Because if you consider the best you can do is zero, once you get to zero, then that's it. There's no more improvement you can make, and you can't get better than zero. Actually, if you take a net positive approach, which says the more positive impacts we can have in the world, then overall, if we can make our positive impact greater than our negative impact, our overall contribution is net positive, then actually there's no limit to the number of positive interactions and positive impacts you can have. And I find it is much more empowering, but actually it's also has the potential to achieve much more, because there's no positive limit, there's no top limit to the number of positive impacts you can have. So and service businesses can have a huge impact in helping their customers and their suppliers reduce their impact. And every time they do that, it multiplies their own positive impact so much more.
That's a really nice one, isn't it? I think, and to me, it comes on to another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which was this whole idea of almost commercializing the journey. I mean, certainly from a marketing background, which is me, I'm always on the lookout for good stories. I mean, we just are, it's kind of inherent in what we do. And there is this concept when you kind of going on that green journey of the thing that you want to avoid, which obviously is greenwashing. We don't want to be going there. But obviously, as you go on this journey, there is the positive, as you say, if you're looking at some sort of carbon positive there, or in terms of the contribution that you're making, and it is a proper contribution, there's some really significant stories to be had there in terms of, your competitive positioning possibly, and particularly, as you were talking there about the whole kind of supply chain thing, where you are part of a value mechanism of getting a product or service from A to B and supplying customers and serving and this, that, and the other. And if kind of part of that becomes a really, really good story, there's something really quite nice competitively here that you can share with kind of all your stakeholders, isn't there? I mean, where's the kind of sort of boundary between what's a good story and what is actually greenwashing? Have you got a kind of a view on that? Because obviously there will be people out there looking to really kind of milk this for all it's worth in a positive way, but there must be some kind of limit as to how far you can push it.
Well, I think it comes down to, first of all, what you said earlier, honesty. So is it actually having an impact? Is the thing that you're talking about really having a material benefit, or is it just a tiny also ran? And so it's that, for me, it's that genuineness is the threshold we're looking for. Really. If it's genuinely having a positive impact, then why not talk about it? Because it actually will help gain momentum and encourage other businesses to do it. On the other hand, if it's something that's contributing 0.0001% to your carbon footprint, there's perhaps other areas that you might look at. And the other danger, I think, is that there's a tendency often to knee-jerk and go for a quick and easy answer that sounds good without understanding what the unintended consequences of that might be. So a lot of examples of this moment in the kickback against plastics, where people are trying to remove plastics. Now, removing single-use plastics is a great idea, but if all we do is replace those single-use plastics with something else that's single-use, that's creating just as much waste, that might actually be more difficult to recycle and have a higher carbon footprint, then actually our net impact is bad. We might have removed plastic and created what we think is a good story, but our impact hasn't been so good. On the other hand, if we've actually thought about it a little bit more carefully and reduced the amount of material and removed that whole need for whatever that material was, so not just remove the plastic, but remove the material altogether, then that's a great story. So it's about, is it material? Is it actually a real benefit? And have you thought it through enough to believe that there's not going to be an unintended consequence, that you're actually going to have a benefit? They're the two thresholds for me. But I think the business benefits of going green can go beyond a good story. I think it is a great marketing opportunity, but I really started my business because I want to take green and sustainability out of the realm of CSR, actually, and I want to put it right at the heart of business strategy. Because I think if we can put sustainability there at the heart of our growth strategy, and then it becomes a growth driver, it naturally becomes self-sustaining. It doesn't have to be sustained because we choose to do it, because it feels good and because it's charity. It actually becomes self-sustaining the business because it drives growth. So I'm unashamedly happy to talk about sustainability and growth in the same sentence. In fact, I think for businesses, it has to be that way. Otherwise, it's always going to be charity, and charity relies on the goodwill of people continuing to do it. I'd much rather have something which sustains itself because it's actually making money and growing.
Yeah, I love that sentiment. I mean, that's sustainability and growth at the same time. And yeah, I think it's almost like the ideal scenario is kind of where you're blending those two things together, so that, if somebody comes at it from a commercial, accounting, fiscal kind of angle, they're seeing some good signs and the numbers and the evidence is there. But if they're also coming at it from a much more kind of purpose-driven, value-driven angle, and it very much reflecting kind of customer sentiment, then they're also getting a good story. So it almost feels like that's the perfect equation, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And the way that you've described it there feels like it's quite evidence-based. I mean, do you, when you're doing an audit, when you're kind of talking to a company who might just be starting on that journey, is it all about the evidence? Because it feels like that's quite an important thing to give this thing tangibility.
That's where I like to start. So with a lot of businesses who are kind of starting out that journey, I have a 6-step journey that I use. And the first step I call know your footprint. And carbon footprint is obviously a key, but not just carbon footprint, the other environmental footprints too, and your social footprints. But I think it's really important to actually understand where your footprint is now and to measure that and quantify that as best you can, so that you really have that grounding in reality where we are today. And then also, because when you put in measures to improve it, you can then actually measure and understand what the impact has been, and you can tangibly see the progress that you're making, and that creates momentum too. And also, I'm a great believer, as soon as you put numbers on something and measure it, just the very act of doing that changes people's mindset around it and changes people's behavior around it. So yeah, that's definitely where I'd like to start.
And I suppose that if somebody's sort of working in an organisation where they're not necessarily the decision maker, but they feel passionately about something like this, they're coming along to your workshop, they're getting all that evidence, they're gathering it, they're talking to others in the business, they might have connections, sort of other stakeholders who kind of connect with the organisation, but they're not the decision maker. I'm guessing this kind of an audit, this kind of engagement with somebody like yourself coming along to a workshop like the one that we'll talk about in a minute, this is all kind of information gathering that's going to be used to be evangelizing going green to a management team or to the MD of the organization, isn't it?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, if you're going to persuade people, it's a hearts and minds approach, isn't it? And you need a bit of both. So you need to be able to engage the heart, you need to be able to engage the emotion, to say, actually, the reason to do this is tangibly in the world. If we carry on the way we are doing, we people and our society, we are actually going to suffer, and actually our economy will suffer, because ultimately we're on a finite planet. But there's an emotional draw there, but you have to also bring along the facts and figures and the intellect, and say, actually, but we can back this up by showing the evidence of this is where we are and where we need to get to. So I think it's important to engage both of them.
Yeah, no, it feels like a really nice balance there, because nobody needs to kind of be missing from this conversation, do they? That's the thing, it's like it should be a really inclusive thing, because everybody's got a part to play, and everybody's obviously part of the impact within a business, and because it's from a personal perspective. So even if they might be very early and not necessarily fully educated in kind of all the opportunity and all the impacts they're making, it just feels that this kind of collective gathering of insights, of data, of the audit, of the storytelling narrative behind it is kind of really crucial to kind of bond everyone. So I think and we've mentioned a few times already, and obviously somebody watching or listening to this is going to be thinking, what's this workshop they keep talking about? So you've got this workshop coming up, so I'll give you a chance to sort of share a little bit about it. So it's called How to Green Your Business.
Yeah.
Who is this for? Who are you hoping will come along and be part of this session? Well,
ideally, it will be some people who run businesses. That's who it's ideally aimed at. Although, I'm happy for anybody to come along who's involved in the business. But my ideal attendant would be somebody who's running a business who would like to their business to have a positive impact in the world, to have a positive impact on the environmental issues that we're having around the climate change, around resource scarcity, around social impacts too, who would like to explore how their business might do that. What are the opportunities in their business that would take them forward in that direction? And it's offered with an open hand like that. So it's free to attend a workshop, and there's absolutely no strings attached. I just want to give business owners and people running businesses that opportunity and a bit of space to explore where those opportunities might lie in their business.
So we'll put all the details and the links and stuff to it below the recording. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, go to anchor.fm/Neil Wilkins. And if you're watching this on video, you'll see the links below, and we'll put all the times and the dates. It's Tuesday, the 26th of May, between 2 and 5 UK time. Just really, obviously without giving away the whole kind of essence of it, but the 6-point plan that you talk about, how broad is that 6-point plan? What kind of sort of titles, again, not expecting you to sort of give all the full answer because people need to come along and listen to the full story, but what kinds of things in that 6-point plan will people see and hear?
Sure. So, well, it really starts at the beginning where we were talking about earlier, which is about quantifying and understanding where you are today. So step one is called know your footprint, and it is really about getting that understanding of where the business is today. It then moves on. I was really happy for you to talk about the contribution that everybody can make, because I think it's very important early on to get everybody within the business involved. We can't solve the problems of sustainability on our own. It can only be done through collaboration. So the next step is about engaging your people, actually, and using sustainability and green as an opportunity to get everybody, both your employees, but maybe also your suppliers and your customers, get everybody involved in that effort. And then it's really trying to take through a sensible step-by-step approach. So it then starts to look at your own operation and how you can save energy, reduce waste, and reduce the impacts of your own operation, and then moves on to look at your supply chain, where you can obviously have a huge impact, but you generally have to get some of your own act in order before you can start talking to your supply chain. And then it really starts to go quite deep and starts to investigate sustainability and green as an innovation opportunity. And this is where we can really start delivering value for the business, I think, because there's a lot of innovation opportunities within sustainability. And then potentially goes right the way through to really re-engineering your whole business model and say, how can you reorient your whole business so that sustainability is at the heart of your growth strategy? And the way to do that is to build sustainability into your value proposition and build sustainability into your business model. So it really goes the gamut from starting understanding where you are right the way through to potentially re-engineering your business. The whole process might easily take a number of years, even if you really want to go on that journey.
But what an exciting starting point that within a 3-hour period you can, as you almost saying there, re-engineer your business. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think for a lot of organizations, they're expecting to be coming out on the other side of the current situation thinking, oh, when we get back to normal, I don't think there is a normal. I think what we're creating here, and I think what you're evangelizing, is this new normal, a much greener normal, a much more value-driven and purpose-driven normal. I mean, for me, just hearing the way that you're describing it and the process that you're kind of is going to be taking people through, it just feels like, you know, the opportunity is there in, you know, spades full. I mean, it's just so exciting, I think, for an organization who is going to embrace this word innovation, because I think in some industries it's all about the cash, and I think it's all about survival. But I think there are ways, from the way you've described it, that there are ways that if growth in cash is of paramount importance, the sustainability is an inherent part of that process, that kind of, you know, re-emerging yourself from this chrysalis that we're all seeming to be in right now. And, you know, the business that you could create on the other side feels like it's more dynamic, it's more appropriate, it's more exciting, with, you know, all the potential that goes with that. Yeah, I mean, you must be really excited by, you know, the changes that you're going to see.
Oh, for sure. That's why I got into this line of work. See them and help those changes, and it's a really exciting place to be working, because I just think I think that actually, to be fair, in the last couple of years we've crossed a threshold with this where it's no longer a weird and wacky thing to be talking about. It's actually mainstream. Almost everybody I talk to now see the value in it and understand that they want and will need to go this way. And I think we're just on the threshold of a really exciting time in business where a lot of businesses start to grasp this and start to really move forward with it.
So Owen's workshop, and as I say, all the details are below, is How to Green Your Business, an online free workshop on Tuesday, the 26th of May between 2 and 5 UK time. Owen claims that you will go away with a 6-point plan for greening your business. So what better time to embrace the future is green. So thank you very much for the conversation today, Owen. It's been really, really interesting. I just love, and it keeps resonating in my head, this whole idea of growth and sustainability hand in hand. I think that's what I'm leaving this conversation with, which feels like a really positive thing.
Fabulous. That's what I'm all about. So thank you, Neil. I really enjoyed it. So it's been a nice chat.